The A7 IV will be a better camera than the Alpha 1. And boy, those are some fighting words. It's probably the biggest fighting words I've ever uttered on this channel in some circles. But I have a reason to think that. So let's get into it. I have here before me a collection of Sony Alpha cameras over the past several years that I have purchased and used over the past several years. Starting with the oldest on the table, the A7 III, and this is also the camera that most likely most of the people buying the A7 IV are going to be coming from and are going to be comparing it most directly to, is the A7 III. It's about 3 years old, I think, the camera design itself. Next camera up, the A7R4. This is still a very current camera. It is, in a lot of people's estimation, the best stills camera still, even though the Alpha 1 is out. The A7R4 has a lot going for it. Next up, the A7S III. Obviously a video-centric camera. It is a video camera. It always amuses me that there are people out there, oh, I shoot 12 megapixel stills. Don't. You know, it's a video camera. You know, and the ones that I have, that I use as video cameras, the A7 III and the A7S III, you'll see I have cages on because it's just an easier way to hang all the stuff that you need for shooting video on those cameras. Use the A7R4 for a stills camera, and then last but certainly not least, the Alpha 1, which is my newest Sony camera, everybody's newest Sony camera. And I was wrong about that camera. And that is part of why the A7 IV is going to be better than the A1. Now, it's obvious that it's going to be better than the A7 III. The A7 III is, as we were saying, the most direct relative of it when it comes out. A7 IV is rumored to be 33 megapixel, have 10-bit video specs. We're not really sure what that's going to be yet because the rumors are all over the place. Is it oversampled from this or the frame rate is that? We don't know. We just know that it's going to be 10-bit. And we're pretty sure that it's going to be 33 megapixel, and that allows the 10-bit oversampling from a higher resolution, like the A7 III does. And by the way, this is a sharper 4K image than the A7S III because of that oversampling that the A7 III does, even though it's 8-bit and it's a few years older. So the A7 III is the one that the A7 IV is going to be most directly compared to. It's also the only one on this table that has the older style body, and it's a little bit harder to see because it's in the cage here, but the grip isn't as deep on it. The buttons aren't quite the same tactile feel. However, there are some things I like about the A7 III that the other ones lack, i.e. the mode dial that does not have a push button lock on it. That's just stupid. You know, that particular dial is never going to get caught on anything, no matter what your harness system is or whatever. You know, why is there a push button lock on the mode dial? I don't know. But I really like that the A7 III doesn't have it and all these other ones do. And the new one probably will too. But it's the older style camera. The grip isn't as deep. Everybody, including me, really wishes that Sony would, instead of deepening the grip, make the whole body taller so it can fit in your hand. But they've decided not to do that. So I actually typically have a battery. Any of the stills cameras, when I'm using them, I have a battery grip on the thing. Just for display purposes right here on the desk, I took it off. So, one it's most compared against. A7R4 is going to remain a much higher resolution camera, and it's going to be for a different customer than the A7 IV. It does not compete with this camera at all in any way. A7R4 is not a very good video camera in that it's only 8-bit, and the sharpest oversampled resolution of it, and it is very sharp, so it's good in that regard, is with a Super 35 crop. And the A7R3, I have one of those too, but one of my guys is using it right now. A7R3 is like that too, the oversampled highest resolution, which is still only 8-bit, and it doesn't do 4K 60, it doesn't do over 4K 30, is with a Super 35 crop. I'm not thrilled about that. If for no other reason, people will say, wow, that's fine, it's just the field of view isn't wide. No, but that's not really it, though. I mean, it changes the character of all your lenses. Your lenses look different in the middle than they do on the edges. And, if you look at MTF charts and stuff, usually that's better in the middle, but it's different. Your lens is going to look different if you have a Super 35 crop versus full frame, regardless of the field of view, of the angle of view. Your lens is going to look different. So, A7S3, in my past few videos, I've kind of slammed on the A7S3 a little bit, and I've gotten a lot of pushback from it. I really think the A7S3 is a mediocre camera. It's not bad, but it's not great. And I believe the A7IV will cut into A7S3 sales, more so than it does the A7R4 or the A1, or even the A7. I think you can still buy the A7 III, or even the A7 III. I don't think it'll cut into those sales as much either. But the A7S3, I think, is on the chopping block when the A7 IV comes out. And then the A1. And I was wrong about the A1. And I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong about something. And it goes both ways, too. Sometimes I'm wrong about something in that I think it's going to be a turd, and it ends up being great. And I'll admit that. Other times, it's the other way around. It's going to be great. Get it in? Not really. A7S3 is kind of like that. I have no problem admitting that. The A1, when it was first out, I thought, you know what? I have these. I have this one, which is higher resolution, and I have this one, which does 4K 120, awesome focusing system, CFXA card. This one's not going to be better than this at stills, or probably this at video, because this has bigger pixels. Boy, was I wrong, okay, because this is better than this in stills and this in video. So the Alpha one is just mind-blowing, and you can check out, I've made one video on that. But when I was first discussing the Alpha one in another video, I wasn't going to get it because I didn't think there was any value there, especially for $6,500, right? So why is the A7 IV going to be better than the Alpha one? Well, we know why it's going to be better than these three. There's one reason it's going to be better than the Alpha one, and this has to do with the precedent that Sony has set forth. Especially, you will see this with Sony's cinema line. They came out with the FX9, $11,000 camera. Does all kinds of awesome things. But it records to an antiquated XQD system. It doesn't do 4K high frame rate. It does now, but at the time it didn't do 4K high frame rate. You could only export raw video with an additional $2,500 brick on the back of it. And yes, comparing against the FS5 and FS7, it's a better camera in just about every way. But then Sony came out with the FX6 and pissed everybody off that had the FX9 because it does everything the FX9 did not. It will export 4K to an external monitor without having to buy another very expensive attachment. It does high frame rate, has the same electronic variable ND, and it's half the price. And it pissed everybody off that bought the FX9. I personally think the FX9 sensor is better. I know the FX9 sensor is better, but is that worth twice the price, especially when you're handicapped in these other ways. I don't know. So Sony has a precedent of doing that. The other way that Sony does that, though, because I don't think the A7 IV is going to have nearly the capability as the Alpha 1, but the other way they do that is with the colors. And if you were to take the same picture with all four of these bodies, you're going to see the colors are decent, better than the A7 II. The colors are getting a lot better. The colors are better still. Wow, these colors are great. I have no reason to believe that the A7 IV colors are going to be fantastic. You put that together with a 33 megapixel sensor, which to me is kind of a sweet spot. I think 24 has become not enough in today's world. Truly. It's become not enough for commercial work like I do. I think 61 is heavy. It's heavy, it's slow. 50, it's not slow just because of the speed of this camera, but 50 megapixel file is a pretty heavy file. And when I'm doing stuff like uploading a job to editors, and I'm uploading uncompressed RAWs, and like 100 of them, it takes a while to do that. And if it bombs out, I got to start again sometimes, you know. So 33 megapixels seems like a really, and the A7R III that I have, that's 41, and that's a real sweet spot too. That's a nice resolution for a full frame camera these days. You don't take a hit in dynamic range anymore. It used to be, and this was one of the arguments with the A7S III, that, you know, it's only a 12 megapixel sensor, and so it's going to be so much better in low light. And the A1 is just as good in low light, and it's a 50 megapixel sensor, so that ship sailed. You know. So am I going to get the A7 IV? As of right now, I will not. If I had not bought the Alpha 1, yeah, absolutely I would. And I still might, because of all those things I said. You know, Sony has a way of giving you features that were advanced features in their high-end cameras and trickling them down to the next body that comes out and pissing off everybody that bought the higher-end body before that happened. So the A7 IV, I have no doubt, is going to be a fantastic camera. It will be a no-brainer upgrade over the A7 III. And I do believe that's going to be the majority of people buying the A7. The majority of people that are already in the Sony system that are going to be buying the A7 IV are coming from the A7 III. I totally think that's true. I think the R bodies have always been kind of a niche camera for people like myself that do commercial work and need the resolution. A1, the price is just going to keep most people out of it. So most people do not have the A1 because it's a $6,500 body. And unless you are a professional or a very serious amateur, or just rich, which means you wouldn't be a photographer. Pros have A1s. You know, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. A7 IV, though, I mean, it's gonna be a knockout for Sony. I'm not gonna buy one because I have an A1. Everybody else should buy one because most people, I think, even watching this video, don't have an A1. So it's going to be the right one for you. It might be the right one for me. Maybe I will eat my words again. And the A7 IV is going to be better than the A1 in every regard. And I'll make another video when that happens, and I'll have the A7 IV in front of me because I would have had to buy it then. You know, if it's better. And I'll eat humble pie again. So anyway, had to jump on the A7 IV bandwagon before this thing gets released. I think it's going to be great. So I can't wait for the videos to start coming out about it. And I don't have any intention to buy one, but things change. I might. Take care.